till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. Finding life along the way, melodies we haven't played. No, I don't want no rest. Echoing around these walls, fighting to create a song. I don't wanna miss a beat. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. And we'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands. And we'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
Alright, there we go. What's going on, everybody? Thought I'd step on here and do this really fun thing for about an hour until the Mazda MX-5 race starts. Why not? It was an exciting weekend last weekend for just the particular reason of the VP Racing Fuels. IMSA, there was racing for the first time for pavement since, I guess, the final race of, well, for IMSA, the Petit Le Mans. But the final race, of course, since, gosh, it's been, so long. F1, I guess, is when the last, pavement official FIA race happened. And that was cool. So, anyways, we start off with a crazy, crazy time. IMSA VP Racing Fuels, they knew that sports car challenge, they knew that they were going into a turn for this series. This series has been going on and off. And what I mean by that is it started with just an LMP3 series, really, or really even before that, when FS1 were the main, or Fox Sports had the rights to IMSA. This series was an LMP3 series with these open wheel race cars that had the body of a prototype, but were almost like, it was a strange combination. But that was it. And then they figured out, or they knew that a year later, that those cars would be going away and it would just be the LMP3 series. IMSA thought about it for a while, and then past the pandemic-ish, around that year, IMSA VP Racing Series Sports Car Challenge was really born. And we have this from, of course, Wikipedia, just to give you all a little insight on this series. We're specifically talking about this series just because it's a really fun series, and I thought it would be interesting just to kind of talk about it for a bit. Really, I don't have the right thing to show my screen, but that's fine for now because we're just really talking about it, and it's pretty interesting. So, IMSA VP Racing Sports Car Challenge is its official name. What is it? The IMSA VP Racing Sports Car Challenge is a North American auto racing series for LMP3, GT3 run as GTTX class, and GT4 run as the GSX class. Vehicles. This series is sanctioned by IMSA and usually run as support races for the IMSA Sports Car Championship. Again, this is all by Wikipedia. I'm just trying to give you all a better background that is not said specifically by myself because, well, what better way is it to give you all the exact information without just saying that this is by my words, this is by Wikipedia, and that's fine. That is completely fine. Anyways, the series began in 2023. Like I said, it was only a couple years ago that this series became a thing because it was once just an LMP3 series with drivers like Hannah Zellers who raced in it, who tried to make it in this series, and all other drivers were like, this is a dumb series, this is a dumb path for me to take at the moment, so let me go into SRO Americas and try to make it that way and just get my license points or whatever, however it's done, up to where I can potentially be almost silver class before I try and join an IMSA sanctioned series, which we all know as well. If you don't know, there's a lot of great videos of it on YouTube of the IMSA / American Le Mans Series split, the Civil War in sports car racing. But it's led us to this, so it's pretty cool. Either way, IMSA VP Racing Sports Car Challenge retained LMP3 class cars from the Prototype Challenge series, but introduced GT4 cars to allow for multi-class racing Beginning in 2025, the series introduced a third-class GTDX open to GT3 specification cars. The series features two 45-minute races per event weekend with no mid-race pit stops for driver changes. The series is designed as a development series for the IMSA series, and as such, drivers must have either a silver or bronze categorization from the FIA to participate. Hence why we have the team officially this year, ST Racing. Well, let's talk about our champions for the last 2 years in this series. LMP3 series, to start off with that, wow, that's a tough name, Bijoy Garg. In the LMP3 and then GSX was Francis Seldorf. But in 2024, we have this man who might be known for some people, Stephen Agakani, in the LMP3 winning that championship. And then Luca Mars. But teams this year, or teams just in general, for champions was J Junior III Racing. And then Fast MD Racing with Rimstar, both 2023 and 24 season for the LMP3 class. And then in GSX, Shock Turner Motorsport win in 23. And then number 59 car of Core Motorsports win in 2024. Manufacturers that year were basically just BMW and Ford, which I don't believe that's even true for GSX. Because I believe that they at least had also a couple of other manufacturers. But I could be wrong. Because these drivers got extra practice if they really wanted to, especially for a couple of those teams, to be in that series. And then to go on and compete in the Pilot Challenge, the IMSA Pilot Challenge, which is an endurance series. But it helps him get the practice at that certain track because most likely this series is going to follow, and it did last year, the whole entire IMSA series. Okay. But some decided not to. So, this is where things get interesting this year. I noticed a lot of teams, especially from the GTDX series, GT3s, from SRO move over to this series. I don't know if the pricing is better. I don't know. I don't keep up with that, but that's interesting. So that's going to be something to really take into consideration, especially when we get into the whole thing. But really, that's all that I really wanted to kind of talk about. Because it gets us into this fun thing. The exact same thing, or the exact thing for ST Racing. And why? Well, because ST Racing, well, they are a new team this year in this series. VP Racing Fuels Sports Car Challenge, because all the teams in GTDX are new in this series, because there was not a thing last year. This was for immediate release. This is by ST Racing. This was January 21st, 2025, when I believe this was released. Let's try to get somebody's name who absolutely released it. And there's no credit. Why would you write something first? This is just a side rant. Why would you write something, but then not give credit to the writer? I don't care if it's by the team. Give credit to the person who wrote this and published it. Give credit to the people who took the photos, too. There's no on this thing that I'm reading from. So I can't give credit. I can only give credit to the team for writing this and publishing it. Cool. Okay. Well, enough with that rant. Again, this is really what I was just coming on here to talk about was the SD Racing. They had a successful run at this. Again, what I was trying to get from that Wikipedia page was how the classes were kind of told. And it's not really given a certain fact of the matter that, yes, GT3 specification classes, they kind of mentioned it, must have either a silver or bronze categorization from the FIA to participate. So right there kind of gives you not the example, but what this VP Racing Sports Car Challenge is for IMSA. Yes, you have the LMP3. Yes, you have the GSX. And yes, you have the GTDX, which we already talked. GSX is GT4. GTDX is just another GT3 classification, basically the same thing. Which, again, it doesn't go in depth on that, which is fine. But then you have to be bronze and you have to be or silver. What do those mean? Those are drivers that are at different skill levels at this time. And it's a single driver race, meaning there's no driver swap outs. So you don't have a silver driver with a bronze driver or silver and silver for a pro class. What does this mean? How are you going to do it? You have to split these in half, meaning the drivers who join with a bronze license need to have their own classification too. And the drivers with the silver license need to have their own classification. That would also, I believe, go for the LMP3s. So there's 2 classifications in each class. If you're allowing LMP3 drivers to run that aren't pro, which looking at the names of the drivers, which we'll get to in a second, because it should be updated by the IMSA website. We'll double check that as well, because this is key too. They do. Anyways, that's basically what we were talking about. So we go back to it. What was the biggest thing? This. We're going to find. Okay. So again, SC Racing gets to compete in this series. Samantha Tan mentioned it not too long before, which was good. It was in, I want to say, December, around that time, that she officially announced that she would be moving to IMSA for the full VP Racing Sports Car Challenge series. Not the WeatherTech Sports Car Challenge, but the VP Racing series. So that was going to be a switch. Like I mentioned, there were several teams, there were several drivers too, that moved from SRO to this. We already knew that Wright Motorsports had a team, the Porsche, with Adam Adelson and Elliott Skier, and they were already going to do IMSA in general. We didn't know if they would be joining that. Then they decided to switch as well. What did that mean? Adam Adelson would be in the pro category in the GTDX. Turner Motorsports, same deal. And then there was even another team, I believe they're GM Racing or something like that. They are sponsored by eBoost. They would be in this series. So a lot of teams from SRO moved over to IMSA for at least this series. We haven't gotten any more confirmation from any other driver or any other team that they'd be running full time for that. A lot of us, especially, that keep up with that series are checking and making sure, and that's not the case anymore. So anyways, we'll read this. 21st of January 2025, Samantha Tan made a successful start to her maiden VP Sports Car Challenge campaign with back-to-back class podiums on the series opening weekend at Daytona. On her first run as part of an official IMSA program and her first visit to the esteemed Daytona International Speedway, the team co-owner took ST Racing's BMW M4 GT3 to a pair of second-place finishes in the GTD-X bronze class across both 45-minute races. Right there tells you bronze class. There you go. There's your answer. Bronze class. Silver class. Those would be in there. You have your pro category. You have your pro-am category. Can I see it in the background? Yes, you all can. You all see that back there? Right there. That is from Indianapolis last year. I show that to you all because, well, that's a very cool memorabilia thing that I have, but also that's kind of what it was, except for the fact that it was bronze plus a silver class driver, and that's where you had Neil Verhagen with Samantha Tan in that SRO series. As you could kind of tell, it kind of doesn't show it, but there's a little logo there, brought to you by AWS, GT World Challenge Americas. So that was a big thing to answer 2 45-minute races. She gets silver in a way. She gets second place in both races, which is massive. Because those combined points, of course, those 2 races, guess what? The driver behind her, or that was kind of ahead of her, wasn't able to be that consistent. And so Samantha Tan, with already that consistency, comes out of Daytona racing with first place in this series, with what she said before was, this is what I want. I want the title. I want the championship. So that was cool. She gets the champion, or she gets first place in the overall standings, 2 second place finishes. That is a key thing. And all of a sudden, Samantha Tan Racing, they're looking good in their maiden VP Sports Car Challenge campaign. This is their first year. Will they be back next year if they win the title? I'd say they probably will be. The reason is you get, again, extra practice before you go on and do your regular race. And there's so much downtime that there's a lot of other series that racers can do. They have the time to, once again, do the 24 hours of Spa. They have a chance to go over to Bathurst if they want to do the IGTC challenge. You know, it's things of that nature that can really put a team and say, maybe we do that. But that's a lot of resources, especially for a team that is from, at the moment, Orange County. I have a big prediction that probably will not happen, which is fine. But let's move on. Again, with ST Racing, 2 podiums and front-running pace marked an encouraging start to Samantha's first full season solo campaign since contesting the Pirelli World Challenge in 2017. Where was she in 2017? What was she doing? TC Americas and GT4. And I don't even know if the GT4 was a single car. Samantha Tan, team co-owner driver, I've completed my IMSA debut weekend with 2 P2 finishes, the VP Racing Sports Car Challenge. It was my first time racing at the iconic Daytona International Speedway in the M4 GT3. Definitely a pinch me moment. Despite not having any winter testing, we maximized the 2 short practice sessions on Friday and showed strong pace right from the first session. Qualifying was challenging due to rain beforehand, which led to tricky track conditions. But I managed to secure pole position for both races and P3 overall in GTD-X. Race 1 was action-packed with plenty of close battles, and although I narrowly missed out on the win, Gotcha. Close battles. And although I narrowly missed out on the win. It was super fun. In race 2, I had a torrential downpour just before the start left the track fully wet. Having never driven Daytona in the rain, it was a challenging learning experience, but I still managed to bring the car home in second place. I believe with one more lap, I could have fought for the win. Yes, after I finish up what she's saying here. Overall, it was a very successful and promising weekend in VPRC. I'm looking forward to the next event at COTA, one of my favorite tracks on the calendar. Well, breaking news. It's about recruiting. Anyways, we go back to what we're saying about this, and this is very important. So, when she mentioned with one more lap, I could have probably gotten the win. This is because, just like any track that has a torrential downpour beforehand, if it's not raining, that track is and it's during the day. Even though it's overcast, there's still sun kind of seeming through the clouds. This is one thing that you always have to remember. The track is constantly drying. The track will be wet. There will be puddles on the racetrack, but you will get a dry line because of how many cars are on the racetrack at one time. And it will dry up in that one particular line. And so once those tires, those wet Pirelli, Michelin, Continental, whatever tires they have on, which in this case they had Michelin's, it will dry and those tires will slowly start to wear because the track is getting hotter and those tires that are grooved are going to find it to be smoother. All of a sudden, those tires get a second life. And I mean this because, yes, they're going to be bare, but they're going to turn into slick tires. You're going to have a little bit more grip than you might have done when it started to dry up. So if there was one more lap, if there was one more minute, Sam would have had a big shot of being able to close in that gap to take that win. Let's talk a little bit more about race 1 because she didn't really mention it, or this article really didn't mention about that first race. That first race, Sam had a lot of pace. Samantha Tan had a lot of pace, and it showed. She was up there for a while. But here's the thing, off of the first couple of laps, and you could see this off the race, she was battling a Ferrari. She was faster than that Ferrari, but one thing that ended up happening is she doored that Ferrari pretty quickly, and then all of a sudden it was just, well, I'm going to try to stay ahead of you as much as I possibly can in the most ridiculous way possible, but not, breaking any rules. And sure enough, that's how she ended up finishing second. It's just she got too far behind from that first place gap, and all of a sudden, finished second and could have gotten that win, but ended up being second. That's fine. That first race, learning experience. What can go wrong? Well, race 2, the rain. That's what ended up going wrong. Nothing with the car and nothing with her driving went wrong in race 2. She was able to keep the car in one piece at Daytona in a wet condition, considering that a lot of those race cars, probably including hers, didn't have that much of a balance, had more of the, it's going to be a dry track condition, so let me set this car up for a dry condition with the traction control and with just the way that the setup, the ballast, and all of that can be done. So, Elk Romerhead engineer, what does he have to say? Love that man. With plenty of new challenges, ST Racing started the 2025 IMSA VP Racing Challenge. VP Racing Challenge. Okay, again, weird sentence, but we'll just ignore that. The team started spot on out of the box. Again, forgot that he's European. Tackling a new competition format, new tire compound, and a new track for us. The mechanics worked flawlessly all weekend long to provide us a fast car in all conditions. After limited time in practice, Sam quickly adopted the challenge of a new unheated tire and was able to put the car on pole position in her class for both races. She showed great pace and racecraft on Saturday, achieving a second place finish. After a storm Sunday morning, we made the right decision to prepare once more a car in which Sam was able to fight for the win on wet track conditions, gaining valuable data and learning for the oncoming events. Next up is COTA, where we have good memories from last year. Well, yes, everyone has good memories from last year from that team, from both Neil and from both Sam. Sam was able to push really, really hard in that last stint for her to get that victory. And it was about 45 minutes, a little less than 45 minutes for just that push. And so she knows how to be able to sprint there. And it's going to not necessarily be cool. It is February. It's not going to be March or May like they're used to. So the temperatures will be a little less than what they're, again, used to. But that just only plays into their favor a little bit more. Having a cooler track temp will be key. It's going to be smoother. I do believe that Circuit of the Americas have been working flawlessly to get that track right up to par for especially MotoGP. And then, of course, NASCAR will be there as well. So that's going to be interesting. Goodyear, then they'll have the trucks, the Titans and all that, trying to blow off all the rubber that they possibly can and debris from that racetrack as clean as possible. With the Michelins, of course, their races will go first. That's going to be on that Saturday, so that's going to be pretty interesting. Okay, now we get a little bit more of an in-depth look into race number 1, which that's interesting. To go from just the driver and the race engineer or mechanic to talk first before we really just get a rundown of race 1. So we all know they qualified well, but let's see. After an impressive qualifying session earlier during which she posted the third fastest lap time, the GTDX field Samantha lined up on pole for race 1 on Saturday morning. Despite having briefly dropped to P4 to fourth, the newly liveried BMW M4 GT3 was soon back up to third and hearing the GTDX leader. A little under 25 minutes in the GTDX field was already into GSX class traffic. Nothing new to the experienced multi-class racer and overall endurance racing drivers champion Samantha. And the ST Racing BMW had soon closed to within 0.3 seconds of her nearest rival, of course, while a combative move for second did not quite pan out. Samantha remained glued to the rear of the Ferrari 296 GT3 for the remainder of the event. Pause right there. That's the perfect way to put that. It is the perfect way. It is the perfect way to put that move. Combative. Because that was a dive in that bus stop, or check that, not bus stop, sorry. That was a different move. Into the horseshoe. They banged quarter panels, which is fine. And she did an okay job of being able to stay right behind. Which okay means she did a good job. In a notable moment, and after positioning the car perfectly for a slingshot move out of turn 6, BMW and Motorsport ambassador Samantha went side by side with the AF Course Ferrari along Daytona's famous oval at upwards of 250 kph. Really? The kph? Yeah, my American's coming out, but really? Put the miles per hour, please. All right, that's about 155 miles per hour for everyone else in America. That, just like myself, doesn't really know kilometers per hour because, yeah, we failed chemistry, and physics. Anyways, eventually sliding through the bus stop chicane to move up a spot, giving her rival room on the approach to turn 1. The subsequent loss of movement into the turn 3 horseshoe meant Samantha was sadly jostled back behind her rivals. Nevertheless, in an impressive opening run, the Canadian native gave chase all the way to checkered flag, eventually securing 5th in GTDX and falling just 2/10 shy of bronze class victory, first time out of the IMSA blocks. Amazing. Heavy rain threatened the second 45-minute race of the weekend at Daytona, but after a short delay, the 32-car grid eventually lined up for a very wet start on Sunday morning. Fittingly, Samantha's endurance racing experience in Europe quickly paid off. The number 38 BMW picking its way through a sodden turn 1 to hold fourth in GTDX across the opening lap, gaining confidence in the changeable conditions. Samantha resumed her battle the previous day with the AF Corsa Ferrari. The pair continuing to swap third place until a full course caution was called just 15 minutes in. When the race resumed 6 minutes later, Samantha leapfrogged the Ferrari once again to retake third in GTDX. Regrettably, a full wet setup meant the BMW was unable to keep pace with the Ferraris as the track continued drying across over the remaining 20 minutes. A fighting drive, however, meant Samantha nevertheless brought the M4 GT3 home unscathed, P2 a second consecutive bronze class podium to sign off a strong opening weekend at Daytona. Well, we're going to put a pause real quick until we read the rest, because there's one thing to mention. Whole entire BMW lineup. So every single BMW team, let me be clear, including Turner, decided to do that. And that includes the GSX class. Because I go back to one driver who is really good with ST racing on the virtual endurance side and also in real life, but doesn't race for Samantha Tan Racing, is Chris Walsh. And why do I bring him up? He went on Instagram. He didn't go on an Instagram live, but he went off of his stories to talk about both of those races that he did. In that second race with the wet compound, they did do a wet setup. And with that, they were struggling at the end of the race to keep up, so he dropped back and ended up finishing, I believe, P3 or P4 in his class in the end, unfortunately. So all BMWs, they had a chance to really sweep that weekend or really have a good shot in that second race, but they were hoping for the forecast and for the weather to have rain at the end of the race. It's interesting that, of course, this is the way that they said it here when we scroll back up and we talk about Samantha Tan and her quote once again. And I read her quote once more because this was big. Samantha Tan saying this. Race 1 was packed, but I'm trying to get... Okay, in Race 2, a torrential downpour just before the start left the track fully wet. Having never driven Daytona in the rain, it was a challenging learning experience, but I still managed to bring the car home in second place. Here's what she said. I believe with one more lap, I could have fought for the win. She believes that. We scroll all the way down to what we were saying. Regrettably, a full wet setup meant the BMW was unable to keep pace with the Ferraris as the track continued drying across over the remaining 20 minutes. Then it says a fighting drive, however, meant Samantha nevertheless brought the M4 GT3 home unscathed in P2 for a second consecutive bronze class podium to sign off a strong opening weekend at Daytona. I'll bring all of this up because it's almost like they counterpointed each other with this article to Samantha's comments. It's kind of funny. Because Sam believes that she had a chance of winning. But then, regrettably, a full wet setup meant the BMW was unable to keep pace with the Ferraris as the track continued drying across for the last 20 minutes. But they said a fighting drive, however, meant Samantha nevertheless brought the M4 GT3 home unscathed in P2. I don't know. It feels a little weird with that sentence. It's just my take on it, because Sam says that she had a chance if there was one more lap to win. ST Racing's VP Sports Car Challenge season continues in just over 1 month's time, with round 2 at the Circuit of the Americas, traditionally a successful hunting ground for ST Racing, on the 28th of February. Then the 1st of March, after a short break, round 3 takes the Canadian team to the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course on the 6th through the 8th of June. And then they just go with end. So yeah, no, a lot to take from this, and what the ST Racing team had to say about this. They are running with success. And Samantha Tan, showing that she has so much talent behind a BMW M4 GT3 car. Because if she's saying, in her eyes, she had a chance to catch the Ferrari if there was one, or the leader if there was one more lap. It's wild. When the team said, when this said, because of the full wet setup, they struggled for pace at the end of the race with 20 laps or 20 minutes left. But a phenomenal drive by Sam meant that they kept P2, because she pushed so much and got everything out of the car, even with the race car not having that much pace, because they needed water, because they needed the track to rain one more time. That's wild to think about. Absolutely phenomenal, though, from Samantha Tan. And it's, her first race here at Daytona. She's driven this track maybe once before in like a little exhibition lap. In a way, it wasn't really, a full lap. It was a full lap, but like it was exhibition style, so she wasn't pushing that much. She was trying to, get stuff out of the car, but for the most part, it was just, a calm lap, which you can find that on their YouTube channel, Samantha Tan Racing, which their last thing that they had posted was from the vlog of Indianapolis in 2023. Closer, I guess, to 2024 when that was released. But that is a big thing right there, how much pace they have. Now, one thing, of course, to talk about now, to kind of move on and see the future, is what is this going to look like at Circuit of the Americas? Because there's an interesting thing, and this has even been confirmed, was the biggest thing. Samantha Tan Racing, they've had success at Circuit of the Americas, especially if you recall last year. Here's where things are interesting. If you do not know this, I recommend you look up IMSA Racing's website. And don't just go to their results, but go to their schedule. This is important. Yes, they completed the Roar before the 24. The next race is at Circuit of the Americas, we all know. Circuit of the Americas have 3 layouts that they possibly could do. One is the full layout, 20 turns of the racetrack, or the race circuit, however long it is. It's 20 corners. This race is being run on the side of NASCAR. NASCAR are bringing their 2 series, not 3, not 4, 2. The Xfinity Series, aka the Grand National Series, and the Cup Series, which run the next gen. Again, why am I bringing those 2 things up? Because NASCAR has officially said that they are changing the layout for their race. They are racing half of the racetrack in only 17 corners. They are taking out the backstretch. They are taking out the backstretch hairpin. Yes, you do have the S's. But then right after one of the S's, right there is a support paddock, and there's always been a gap in between. And a gate that cuts it from being open. They're going to have that gate open. What does that mean? Through that loop and through back to the front stretch. So you miss a lot of it. That is NASCAR. What's sounding like is every single series will have that, including the VP Racing Series, Sports Car Series. But again, Sports Car Racing Series will have their qualifying, their practice and qualifying on Friday. Their first race will be Saturday. Their second race will be Saturday. Why do I bring all this up? Because again, yes, that leaves it for the Cup Series to have their race. But the Xfinity Series still has to race in the middle. They're going to be doing the short track. There you go. The only thing that I can see is that they're racing the half circuit. That's going to be something to watch. 40 plus cars around there. It's still 17 corners. It's not going to be the full 3.426 miles. So there is that. There is that. It's going to be interesting how it will be. I really don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to make sure that I could possibly, however I can, get the correct credentials to be in that garage, be in that paddock for that whole weekend. With the VP Racing Sports Car Challenge Series. Just to be with the drivers, to see what they're feeling, to see how they're going to enjoy that and all that fun stuff. Really going to figure out how to do that. Because, yes, this is a very important series to me, and there's some great drivers in the paddock. There's some drivers that I've actually met before that I didn't realize that I had met. Besides Samantha Tam, besides Chris Walsh. there's a whole Toyota team that I didn't realize that I know some of them. Kiko Porto is one of them. There's a good chance that Isabella Robusto will be there, a spotting for one of the drivers. And then, yes, there's Chris Walsh, like I mentioned before, and then there's a couple of others that I've noticed the names to. So it's very exciting. I'm looking forward to it. The second round, and there are chances that I will try and also make it to the final race of the season. That would be your Motul Petit Le Mans for the whole weekend, but that would also include the VP Racing Fuels series, sports car series. Look, I'll try to get the best content that I possibly can. You all have seen my content on this YouTube channel in general, and I feel like I've done a really good job. And now trying to keep up with this series is going to be key for me as well, because this is such a cool, fun series to talk about, because it's so small. Because it almost came out of nothing. But that's what makes it work. And it's a sprint series of what is a real series. Except that there's no LMP3s. There's LMP2s and LMP1s. Or GTPs. But anyways, that's going to do it for us here talking about that. Prediction for Circuit of the Americas, it's going to be a sweep by ST Racing in the bronze category because, well, they have a really good track record of doing really well there. As long as no one dive bombs from Narnia at a T1. As long as there's no dive bombing from Narnia at a T1, ST Racing look very promising at that circuit. Again, cooler temperatures will only benefit the BMW more, which means they'll have to defend from Turner Motorsports. I really do believe that that's a track that BMW will dominate at again. But yes, like I said, that's going to be it for me. Thank you all very much for watching. Until next time.